Hey there, everyone, and welcome to Bad Kids Don't Exist. This is the podcast that helps adults better understand kids to create environments where kids and their caregivers can thrive. My name is Stuart Perry. I go by Mister Stu. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, a child therapist, and an Autism Spectrum Disorder clinical specialist. And I'm going to be answering questions today, questions that were sent in by parents and caregivers just like you, or maybe you are one of the parents or caregivers that wrote in these questions. I'm so excited. Today I've got some questions about helping children with diagnoses still have consequences, understanding expectations for grades, understanding a little bit more about my book that was just released last week, trying the strategies that I explain in my videos and they're not working, and then talking about children who procrastinate. So hopefully those will be topics that are interesting to you and topics that are going to be so helpful. I find that most of the stress and most of the frustration that comes from being a parent or a teacher or a caregiver really just comes down to misunderstanding. Just like if you are in an argument with a friend, but really it comes down to you just didn't quite understand what it was that they had to say. So many times it's just a misunderstanding between kids and the adults who care for them. And today I hope to be able to break down some of those barriers and help you understand kids just a little bit better. With all that being said, let me jump right into the first question that I am so excited to answer. Just so you know, you can write in questions on social media. I am at Mister Stu TV on all social media platforms. I am most active on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads, and then you can also write in on YouTube. And on all of those places, I am at Mister Stu TV. YouTube is the place where you will see all my videos, and then there's Facebook and Instagram. On each of those platforms, you'll see something different, and then Threads, you'll also see different things about me. So make sure you're following me everywhere. It's at Mister Stu TV. That's ISTERSTU TV. Or if you just want one place to be able to go and find it all, it's badkidsdon'texist.com. Now let's jump into this first question that was sent in on Instagram at Mister Stu TV. Here it is. My child was recently diagnosed with ADHD, and I know it explains why they struggle with sitting still and following directions, but I'm not sure how to handle their disruptive behavior. How do I address it without feeling like I'm being too hard on them? First off, let me just say I'm so proud of you for understanding where some of those disruptive behaviors come from. The sitting still and the focusing are definitely the symptoms that people know the most about when it comes to ADHD. But some of the other disruptive behaviors, and you didn't mention what those disruptive behaviors are, but other disruptive behaviors can also be a result of ADHD. Things like what in the clinical world we call a low frustration tolerance, which means that kids get pretty upset pretty quickly for seemingly very small things. That is a symptom of ADHD. Or losing things or having difficulty completing their homework, things that are really frustrating for parents. Things like not keeping their room clean or talking back or interrupting when they're being spoken to either by a teacher or by another adult. All of those things are actually symptoms of ADHD. But I want to tell you something, and I hope that you'll listen to this and understand what I'm really trying to say. Children with diagnoses, whether it be ADHD, whether it be depression, whether it be other things like even DMDD, disruptive mood dysregulation disorder, or PTSD, if a child has a diagnosis, that can explain their disruptive behaviors. But it does not excuse their disruptive behaviors. And in today's world, I've found that it's almost trendy to be looking for a diagnosis or to hope for a diagnosis or to be able to blame things on a diagnosis. But here's the thing, everybody's got something going on. There are very, very rare cases where someone comes into my office for a diagnosis and I can't diagnose them with anything. Everybody's got something going on, and everybody has to learn how to function appropriately in our world, even though they've got things going on. So just because your child has a diagnosis, it's great to be able to explain those behaviors, and it's great to have the name for the thing that's going on so that you can find the best supports for them. If there was no name for it, you'd just kind of be trying everything. But there are best supports for kids with ADHD or kids with any diagnosis. But just because they have a diagnosis doesn't mean that their disruptive behaviors should be excused. And it's not just like, oh, well, let's just blame the ADHD and my child doesn't have to ever take accountability for their actions. And unfortunately, that's what I see a lot. People will call me and they'll say, I can't believe that the school decided to have a punishment for my child. Don't they know they have ADHD or whatever their diagnosis is? And I have to explain, yeah, they might have ADHD or depression or PTSD or DMDD or autism even. That can explain those disruptive behaviors, but it doesn't mean that the child just gets to do whatever they want just because they have a diagnosis. Now, you asked a great question. How do I address it without feeling like I'm being too hard on them? So, now that we understand that diagnoses can explain a lot of disruptive behaviors, but they shouldn't be excused, now we need to talk about expectations. So we talked about explain, excuse. Now let's talk about expectations. 3 X words, EX words, expectations. If there is an expectation of your child that your child cannot meet, then it's not appropriate to punish the child or have a consequence for the child for that behavior. But if it's an expectation that they can meet, or it's an expectation that they're going to have to meet, then it's not that they should just be excused from meeting that expectation. What we have to do as the caregivers and as the trusted adults in these children's lives is find ways to support them so that they can meet the expectation or so that they can function appropriately without having lots of disruptive behaviors. And again, you can always come back and you can say, well, yes, this is because of the ADHD. So I do need to make sure that my consequences or my supports or even the punishment, I need to make sure that I take all of that into account, but it doesn't mean that the child just gets to do whatever they want. But first we have to ask, is this an expectation that they can meet? And if it is an expectation that they can meet and they're just choosing to use their diagnosis as an excuse, we have to let them know that that is not going to fly. That yes, you have ADHD. You're right. You do have ADHD. That doesn't mean that you're just going to get to do whatever you want. And that is a conversation. It doesn't have to be punitive right away, and it doesn't have to jump to extremes. It can just be, hey, yeah, you've got this thing going on, and yeah, it's going to be tough for you, but guess what? There's other kids in your class that have that, or there's other kids in your class that have other things or need supports in other ways. So I want to find the best way to support you. So how do you think we can work together to make this disruptive thing stop happening so much? And that in and of itself can be a consequence, is having this discussion. It doesn't have to be a punishment, and there don't even have to be big consequences. It can just be, how can we work together to overcome this thing? Keep all of that in mind, that diagnoses can explain behaviors. They do not excuse behaviors, but make sure that your expectations are rational and they are expectations that your child can meet. Then have a conversation with them about, hey, how can we work together, or what do you need to help this thing stop happening or happen less so that you can function appropriately in the ways that you need to. There's no specific answers. I know I didn't say like, oh, well, here's the thing you say, or here's the thing you do. It doesn't really work like that. There's not a one-size-fits-all approach when it comes to kids. So work with your child. You know your child well. Talk with them, collaborate with them, work with them, and help them figure out together how they can be supported to decrease those disruptive behaviors. Thanks so much for asking the question. Hopefully that answer was helpful. If it was, like this video, make sure to like and subscribe, especially on YouTube. That helps me out a whole lot. It helps me go out into the world, into the algorithm. And yeah, I would really appreciate it if you'd like and subscribe this video. Let's go on to question number 2. This one came in on Facebook. Again, Facebook is at Mister Stu TV, at Mister Stu TV on Facebook, and this one was written in there. Here it is. My child's grades are fine, but they're not excelling in every subject like I think they should be. I just don't understand why they're not putting in more effort or getting better results in all their classes. Can you tell me how to get them to work harder at school? Great question. And again, this is another one that comes up all the time where people's main concern really is academic progress. And that is something I need to talk about first. Our main concern with children should not be their academic progress. It should be a concern, and it should be something that we do focus on with them, but it should not be the number one thing that we think is going to make or break them. So breathe easy. If that has been your number one concern, just know it's not the number one thing that's going to make or break their success in this life. Covered a few different things. You said that their grades are fine, but they're not excelling in every subject. And then you ask why they might not be putting in more effort, and then how to have them work harder at school. So I guess the first thing is to have a conversation with them and see if they feel like they are working the hardest that they can and putting in their best effort. That doesn't mean that they're losing sleep over how much effort that they're putting in, or that they're getting rid of all of their social calendar just so that they can focus on school. Because again, academics are important, but it shouldn't be the number one thing, and it shouldn't be the only thing that we're focusing on with kids. So reading this question the way that it's written, I would really say in our world today, the expectation has become that kids get all A's in all their classes. It's kind of this, what I've deemed this 5-star world, where when I used to ride in Ubers, is that how you say it? Ride in an Uber? I would give a real rating. To me, a 5-star used to be, not anymore. Now I would not dare give below a 5 unless something really bad happened. But it used to be that a 5 to me was like, Uber drivers used to have snacks in their car, and they'd have the charger set up so that you could plug your phone in and all these other things. And it was really above and beyond. That was 5 stars. Now, in our world today, it's like, how dare you not give 5 stars? How dare you not tip to the extreme and give 5 stars? They drove you. Well, yeah, I get it, and I understand they want a 5-star rating. If they would like a 5-star rating, they need to have gone above and beyond. Now, again, that is not our world today. In our world today, I just click 5 stars unless something really egregious happened on the ride. But we've translated that over to the school environment, where we've made kids believe that all A's in all subjects for all their years in school should be the goal. And it just shouldn't be. Kids are going to be better at some things than they are at other things, or they're going to be more interested in some things than they are in other things. And we've got to bring back that mentality. An A means that you excel at that thing. It means that you are excellent at that thing. A B means that you are above average at that thing. And a C means that you are average at that thing. But so many times parents will freak out if their child gets a C when really maybe the child is working as hard as they can and math just isn't their subject. So they got a C. Well, guess what? That means they're average. That means that they're on level. That means that they're doing what they need to be doing at an average level. They're not excelling, but guess what? Maybe they're not wanting to go into anything with math, or maybe it's just not something that they are super interested in. Expectations might be part of the answer to this question. If you're expecting that your child is going to get all A's in all subjects at all times, that's not really fair to place onto the child for a lot of different reasons. Different subjects actually require different parts of the brain to work harder than other parts of the brain. Maybe you've heard of this left brain, right brain mentality. And I've got to be honest with you, I always get it screwed up. Which one is the left brain and which one is the right brain? But one half is more that creative side and one half is more that facts and figures side. So children who are much more, let's say, I hope that I'm saying this right, left brain, that more creative side, they might excel better at subjects like different sciences at times. Now, I'll give a caveat to that, but sciences and English and arts, that's more that left brain side, whereas the right brain side is things like math. And then social studies can kind of play both. If you've got a teacher that wants them to memorize a bunch of dates and facts, that's much more right brain. If you've got a teacher that wants them to understand the different themes that were going on in history and how they can apply to today, that's much more left brain. And the same with science. If you have a teacher that just wants you to memorize chemical formulas, that's much more right brain. And if you have a teacher that wants you to understand how things work together and how we use it in our world today, that's much more left brain. Well, each of us, our brain is wired to have strengths and weaknesses in our own brains. So to require that a child gets all A's in all subjects just doesn't take into account that their brain isn't wired that way. So if that's your expectation, you're going to need to adjust that expectation, and that's okay. But remember, it's really about effort, and it's about helping your child understand that they need to put forth their best effort. That doesn't mean that they should give up everything just to do well in school. But it does mean that with the life they live, they should be giving forth their best effort at everything they do, whether it be sports or school or art or theater or music or having conversations with people or the way that they volunteer or maybe they have a part-time job, whatever it might be, that they should be giving their best effort each of their areas. That doesn't mean they're going to be the best one at each of their areas, but they should be giving their best effort. And if you feel like your child is not giving their best effort, not just that they're not getting the A, but that they're not giving their best effort, you can go to them and you can have a conversation and say, you know, you said you were giving your best effort, but I noticed you didn't study at all for this test, or it didn't seem to me like you studied at all for this test. Can you tell me what that plan was about? Because you told me that it was your best effort, but it just didn't look that way. So let's talk about it. It doesn't have to be all this punitive consequence, big extreme reactions. It can just be, hey, I do want you to put forth your best effort. Do you really feel like you've been doing that? Have you really been putting forth your best effort? And if they can say yes, and they can tell you why, then guess what? Maybe they just don't excel in the subject that you're thinking about. But when you look at other subjects, maybe they do excel at those. And praise them big for the things that they excel at, and then for the things that they are more average at, praise them for putting forth their best effort, even though it's not something that they enjoy as much, and it's not something that that just comes as easily to them. If you'll do that, they'll see that putting forth effort still gets reward, still gets praise, and that you see how hard they're working. And over time, they'll be willing to work harder because they see that you care about it. Hopefully that was helpful. If it was, make sure to like this video and subscribe, especially on YouTube, but across all social media. It's at Mister Stu TV. Thank you so much for writing in. Okay, question number 3. This question came in on an email. Okay. This one was written in on an email. You can write in your questions to question@MrStuTV.com. That's question@MrStuTV.com. And there I will see the question, or someone from my team will see the question, and then I can use it in one of these live videos, or sometimes I just respond right back through an email. So here's the question, and I'm really excited to answer this one. I'm a teacher, and I've been hearing a lot about your book lately and how it's helping parents and educators. Can you tell me more about it and what makes it different from other books on special education? First off, thank you so much for reaching out about my book. If you don't know, just last week I had a book come out. It's called Putting the Pieces Together, Understanding and Supporting Children with Autism Spectrum Disorder. And I am so excited about this book. Let me just give just a quick brag, because I worked really hard on this book, and I'm really proud of how it's doing. Right now, even a week later, it is still the top new release in special education books on Amazon, and it is the number 10 book in special education in all of Amazon. Now, some of you are like, well, he didn't make it to number 1. And if you're thinking that, then maybe you need to go back and look at what I said about the question about expectations and just celebrating how hard someone has worked or how hard your child has worked. I worked really hard on this book, and I am so proud that it has, at one time it was number 5 in special education, and now it is number 10 in special education, even a week after its release, which means it hasn't fallen that far, given that there are thousands and thousands and thousands of special education books on Amazon. So I am so proud of this book. But let me tell you just a little bit about it, and maybe what does make it a little bit different from other special education books on Amazon or wherever you might find books about special education, especially children with autism. I found, and the thing that I wanted to do differently in my book is I found that so many books or trainings about autism were just a list of symptoms, where it was just, okay, here's all the different things that you can see, and here's what it might look like in all these different environments, and that's autism. Good luck. And I did not want my book to be that way. So the way that this book is written is to help you understand why some of those symptoms happen. I dive deep into the brain chemistry and the brain functionality of individuals with autism and explain where so many of the different very common symptoms of autism come from. Now, I can tell you, I do not answer every single question that you will have about autism in this one very readable book. It does not answer every single question. You're not going to walk away from it saying like, oh, well, there it is. I've got everything I need now. That's not it. But I do hope that this book will bring hope, because so many times parents or teachers will look at me and say, oh my goodness, my child has autism, or oh my goodness, I have a student in my class with autism. I just don't know what to do. What are we going to do? How am I going to do this? This book will help you to see that autism is not something to be fixed. It's just a different way of viewing the world. And it will show you where that view of the world comes from. And it offers specific, actionable strategies that you can use to support kids or other individuals with autism so that they can show the rest of the world how awesome they really are, how awesome you know they already are, but they might have difficulty showing that off to the rest of the world. Hopefully this book is one that explains a lot of things in very simple ways and then gives you some actionable strategies that you can use right away, right as soon as you're reading the book or right after you get done reading the book, and you will be able to implement some of these things so that your child or the person that you love, who you care for, who has autism spectrum disorder, can be supported so that they can show off how amazing they really are. And that's really what this book is all about. You'll learn the science of autism spectrum disorder. You'll learn what's going on in the brain of someone with autism. And then you'll learn some specific strategies and my 5 P's for creating an environment that supports someone with autism in the best way possible. Check it out. It's on Amazon right now. The ebook is only $4.99 and this paperback is only $9.99. So please check it out. It supports me in a big way. If you will, even if you'll just click and view the book, that helps me out a whole lot. And it's free to look. So if you'll check that out, it would mean a whole lot to me. And if it seems interesting to you, or it seems like it would be helpful, grab yourself a copy. Grab some copies for your friends, family, teachers, anybody in the life of a child that you care about who has autism, and hopefully it will be very helpful to all of you. That's about my book. Thank you so much for asking. Thank you so much for checking it out. And thank you so much for what you do as a teacher who supports these kids day in and day out in ways that are so difficult, and in ways that people like me who are not teachers, or other people who don't care for kids as a profession, it's really, really tough for us to even imagine how difficult it can be sometimes to really care for all these kids all at the same time and keep them together and make sure that they're growing and excelling. And just thank you so much for all that you do. All right. Well, I am moving on to question number 4. This one was again written in on Instagram. It's Instagram at Mister Stu TV. And I'm curious about this one because I'm reading it as I'm talking and I'm wondering what I'm going to, now I know what I'm going to say to it. All right, here we go. This one is from Instagram at Mister Stu TV. Here's what it says. I've been watching your videos and tried some of the strategies you suggest with my child, but they don't seem to work. I feel like nothing is really changing no matter what I try. What am I doing wrong? Ooh. First off, thank you so much for not just coming to me and saying, you idiot, none of your stuff works, because that's happened before, and that has happened very publicly before. So thank you for that, but let me encourage you. There's nothing you're really doing wrong, but I want to kind of help your mindset a little bit. You said this, you tried some of the strategies, and nothing is really changing no matter what you almost nothing. And actually, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Nothing is just a one-time thing. And almost nothing is going to be effective the first time you try it. There's a big difference between trying something and implementing something. So when I talk about things like discipline and I say punishments aren't always necessary, you can have conversations with kids. Well, guess what? That's not going to stop your child from going out and having disruptive behaviors. And it doesn't mean punishments are never, ever, ever the answer. It just means that these are things you're going to have to do over time. Or if I tell a teacher that they need to allow a child to use a fidget during class, well, the child is probably going to goof off with the fidget the first several times that they play with the fidget. They're not going to get it right the first time, but they'll call me that first day and they'll say, this is not working. I tried it. It's not working. Or they'll try my other strategies and they try. There's a difference between trying something and implementing something. And what you have to do is you have to have this mindset of, I'm going to implement this strategy. This is going to be my default. This is the thing. I'm going to, if it was something I said to not do, that's off the table. For instance, I say a child should never be spanked. And that, I'll just say it right here. This video is going to get a bunch of thumbs down because there's lots of people who yell at me when I say that. But children should not be spanked. So if you just say, I'm going to try not spanking, but I'm going to implement not spanking, that is coming off the table. Now you got to find some other strategies. And maybe you start using some of my other strategies and you try them once. It's just not working. Or maybe it's not just about disruptive behaviors. Maybe it's about effort. Maybe it's about helping your child to work harder at things. And you try some of those strategies that you saw and it's not going to work. Well, guess what? It's not going to work. It's not going to work the first time you try it or the first several times you try it. But if you implement it and you are consistent with the strategies, that is when you'll see the growth. The same thing happens in therapy. I am very grateful and very blessed to have fantastic clients with fantastic parents who are so driven and motivated to participate in therapy and to make sure that their children get the services that they need. I am so blessed and grateful right now. And I got to tell you, if you are watching this and maybe you are one of the parents that I get to work with in my therapy world, you're a rock star. They work so hard to make sure that the kids get the services that they need. And you can even see that I get emotional when I think about it, because these parents are working so hard to make sure that their kids get what they need to be supported for the time that they need it. So thank you. If you are one of those parents, whether you're one of my parents or anybody's parent, and you are getting your child the services consistently, thank you so much. I know it's tough. Thank you. But there's been other times where a parent will call me after 1 or 2 sessions and they'll say, we tried therapy, we're not coming back, it didn't work. And I have to tell them, 1 session of therapy, or really 2 sessions of therapy, or in many cases 5 sessions of therapy, or in some cases 8 to 12 sessions of therapy. It depends on what the concern is and what the goal is, but in many of those cases, that trying therapy doesn't work. But if you are consistent with therapy, that is where the change can happen. That is where the growth can happen. But it takes consistency. It's not trying therapy, it's implementing therapy. It's being consistent with therapy. And I would say the same to you about these strategies. If you're trying the strategies, it's not going to work. But if you are implementing the strategies and you are consistent with the strategies, that is when you'll see the change, and that's when you'll see the growth. And that's what makes a lot of people give up. They try them, they say they don't work, and then they say, see, but spanking them makes them stop right now. And they don't understand like what the spanking did and what the spanking is going to do long term, and that spanking is not research proven to work long term, and all these other things that I know. I don't want to go deep into spanking right now, but that's one. Whatever the strategy might be, implement it, be consistent with it, and then you will see the change and the growth. And then let me give you kind of a time frame to work for. If it is a strategy that you're using every day, it needs to be about 3 months. About 3 months of consistent work with those strategies. And let's just make that be the baseline for all these strategies. If you consistently implement them, and you can say that you gave them your best effort and that you used that strategy as best as you could for 3 months, and there is no growth and no change and nothing is getting better, then it's time to look for a different strategy. But if you just tried it once, twice, couple weeks, it's not been enough. It's not been consistent enough, and it's not been implemented for long enough. Change is hard. And the first several times you use a strategy, it's probably not going to be used entirely properly. And the first time you use a strategy, your child is not going to know how to react to that strategy. So be consistent with it, stick with it, implement the strategy, and then you'll see that change and the growth. You are not doing anything wrong. You just need to do some things longer. There you go. Thank you so much for writing in and for being so honest and for being willing to own your concern. I appreciate that very much. All right. We are on to the last question of today. This one's, man, you all, I love the questions that you write in, because there are so many times where I read it and I'm like, yep, answered that one 15 times this week to somebody in the lobby or whatever it might be. Thank you so much for this. I have a lot of fun doing this. So let's see. This one was written in on Facebook. Again, it's Facebook at Mister Stu TV on Facebook. I'm going to plug them all. It's at Mister Stu TV on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. That's where I'm most active. YouTube, you're going to get all the video content. So I really, really would appreciate it if you'll subscribe to me on YouTube at Mister Stu TV on YouTube. And then also it's at Mister Stu TV on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. And on all of those platforms, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Threads, you'll see different things about me and about the things that I'm doing. And Instagram and Threads are a little bit more personal, and Facebook and YouTube. Facebook is more the business side of things, and YouTube is just, it's me right here just talking. And there's training videos on YouTube, and there's all sorts of other things. So please follow me everywhere. It helps me out a whole lot if you'll do that. And it's free. It's free to follow me on all those places. All right. Here is the final question of the day, again written in on Facebook. My child always waits until the last minute to start their homework or chores, and it drives me crazy. If that is you, like this video, subscribe to this channel, because this is the channel for you. I feel like they're procrastinating and wasting time. Why can't they just get things done right away? Again, if this is you, like the video, subscribe, because these are the types of questions that I answer all the time on all these channels. Procrastination can seem like a really big problem when it comes to kids, especially kids and their homework and all these other things. Let me ask a question back, and I know you can't respond right away, but I'm going to ask it. And then if you are watching this video, whether you're the one who wrote this question or you're thinking about it, see if this question makes any sense to you. Do they still get the work done? Because if they still get the work done, what's the problem? Sometimes we want kids to be on a certain timeline, but if it's all getting done and it's all doing just fine, it can seem stressful, but they got it done. So breathe easy, they got it done. And most of the time, kids will get things done, but there are some caveats to that. If your child is stressing out because they waited too late and they're doing that consistently, something needs to change. And you got to work with them on managing their time. I talk often about a part in the brain that's called the frontal lobe, or the prefrontal cortex, and that part of the brain helps with a lot of different things, but one of the things it helps with is time management. And that part of the brain doesn't really connect, it doesn't start fully functioning until around age 12, and I shouldn't even say fully functioning. It doesn't start functioning really until around age 12, and then it doesn't fully develop until around age 25, and then it actually never stops developing. It's just formed a full connection at age 25. So if you're working with a child, they're not going to be great at time management. They're going to need some help with that. So if it is a situation where they are getting stressed consistently because they waited too late, then that is where you can sit down with them and, again, collaborate with them and say, hey, you got this big project coming up. I know in the past there have been times where you've waited until the last night and then it becomes really stressful for you. I want us to avoid that this time. So let's plan. How much time do you actually think this project is going to take you? And that is going to lead me to my next point. There is a principle in mental health, not a principle like at a school, but a principle, Principle, not PAL. Principle, like a theory. It's called the Parkinson's principle. And maybe you've heard of Parkinson's disease. This is not that. This is the Parkinson's principle. And the Parkinson's principle says that we will use as much time as we have to complete a task. What that means is that if you have 3 weeks to complete a project, you will not get that most of the time. You will not get that project done in the first week. It may only take you a week, but you will wait until the 3rd week to get the project done. This is one of the reasons why on those baking shows that I love so much, they are going down to the last second. Some of that is crafty editing, and sometimes they really are done before the time runs out. But in our brains use as much time as we have. So we will go down to the final second. If your child has 3 weeks to complete a project and it's only going to take them 1 week to get the project done, then don't be surprised if they wait until the final week to get the project done, because in their brain has done this calculation to say, like, I think it's only going to take me about a week. And then it will take them that whole week. But if they say, I think I can get this done in a night, they'll get it done in a night. Now, it might not be as great as it would have been if they had planned and really taken time and energy and made it 3 weeks worth of work, but they'll get it done, and they may even get a really great grade on it. There were times in college where I would write a 20-page paper the morning that the paper was due, and I got an A on that paper. I got a 4.0 in high school, I got a 3.5 in college, and almost none of that was I not procrastinating. I was procrastinating big time, but I was able to do it because of that Parkinson's principle. I was able to think, and again, I wasn't great at time management because my frontal lobe wasn't fully connected, but I was like, I think that's only going to take me about a day, or I think that's only going to take me a few hours. Well, we will fill up however much time we have for something. So what you can do is, if you feel like your child is stressed and they're consistently, not just one time, but consistently stressed and consistently making this mistake of waiting too late. They misjudged the time because, again, they're not going to be great at time management. They misjudged how much time it was going to take. What you can say is, hey, you have 3 weeks to finish this project. I would love to be able to check in on that project in 1 week and see where you're at. Where do you think you'll be at in 1 week on this project? And have them set a goal of where they want to be in a week. Then that Parkinson's principle will adjust itself and say, okay, I've got a week to get here, not a week to get it done, but I've got a week to get here. Then you can collaborate with them and you can say, oh my goodness, look at this project. You have done great. What do you think of it? What would you like to change, or what still needs to be done? Okay, let's check in again at the end of this week. So you've waited a week and then you're waiting the end of that week, and then the Parkinson's principle adjusts again and it's like, okay, I've got 5 days to get to here. Okay, I can do that. And they'll take these steps and it helps their brain learn about that time management. You and I know when we break things down into little pieces that it typically turns out better because we've not tried to cram it all at the same time. But you've also been in a situation at work where you cram it all until the very last minute. Or I've been in situations where I've crammed whatever needs to happen and I've had a month to get it done and I'm cramming it all in 2 days or whatever it might be. But if it gets done and it gets done well, that's okay. So don't judge it just because it's not on your time schedule. But if it is a thing where the child is becoming stressed, or if the work is just not turning out well, or it's not getting an appropriate grade, maybe that's, I hate to talk too much about grades because people's expectations of grades are all different all over the place. But if you can tell that they weren't able to put forth their best effort, or that when they turned it in, it was very below average, then, or they were super stressed, then it's time to help them manage their time a little bit better. But keep in mind this Parkinson's principle. They're going to use as much time as they have, and almost always it will come down to the wire. So don't stress about it coming down to the wire, but help them make decisions along the way. Thank you all so much for joining me today. I had a blast answering those questions. Hopefully they were helpful. If the answers to these questions were helpful, make sure to like this video and subscribe so that you don't miss out on any of the mental health fun tips and tricks. I am live almost every Friday on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm here to answer those questions that get written in throughout the week. And if you're ever watching live, you can write in questions during the live episode as well. Thank you all so much. Remember, some things exist, some things don't. Bad kids don't exist. And keep in mind, I love helping adults better understand kids. If that sounds like a good match for you, an event or a training that you have coming up or that you need for your staff or a team that you're on, I would love to talk with you. You can head over to badkidsdon'texist.com/booking, and there you'll find all the information you need to hire me as a keynote speaker, a workshop leader, or trainer, and I would love to help make your next event a great one. Again, some things exist, some things don't. Bad kids don't exist. I'll see you again next time. Peace.